Uko Kuno Abo Pano Mamu wanna get it nice.
Right, 31 October 2021, and today I'm joined by Mr. Tinashe Jonasi on a Sunday, a special Sunday, as we continue to look at the developments or coming after the report issued by Professor Elena Doughan on the Zimbabwe sanction. How are you, sir?
As usual, I feel excited to be invited, and I know that I will be famous, and I will tell my mother I'm now famous.
Good. Let's start with a very important question.
Yeah.
What is the game plan of the United States of America in Zimbabwe?
The game plan is that they formed a political party and found the spokespeople, and then they call it MDC, and the spokesperson of the political party is Nelson Chamisa. So actually, the regime change plan is failing because they thought the crippling economy of 2008, the opposition was going to take over. So they are failing.
Okay, let's go to the development this week. Professor Elena Doughan produced a report in which she said the sanctions on Zimbabwe are hurting ordinary people, and then they should be removed on individuals and on corporates, on companies. Tendai Biti issued a statement a few days ago in which he refused to deal with the issue of whether these sanctions are hurting ordinary people or not. He also refused to use the word sanctions. And then on the 29th, which is about 2 days ago, the United States representative to the United Nations, I think it's Linda Thomas Greenfield, she issued a statement, or she responded to a question. I want to play for you what she said in her own words, and then we'll take it from there.
I have not seen the special rapporteur's report out of Zimbabwe, but let me be clear. Our sanctions target individuals and institutions that are committing human rights violations, and we make every effort to ensure that those sanctions do not impact the people. What is happening in Zimbabwe is a result of bad policies in Zimbabwe. What is happening in Zimbabwe is the consequence of their leadership. It is not a consequence of our sanctions, and we will always resist any criticism of us that says our sanctions are the result of our sanctions are impacting people unfairly. And you certainly will see that we will be criticized for this. We're criticized for it by the government because they know that they are responsible for these actions. And I regret that the special rapporteur made the decision to put this in his report.
Right. Let's unpack this statement or this response. This was an answer to journalists. Let's unpack the fact that she used the word sanctions. The United States has not been using the word sanctions before. Is there an implication for her using the word sanctions?
Yeah, the implication as an officer at United Nations and the special envoy of the same organization uses the word sanction and condemn them. She's put in a corner and she needs to respond because the question is talking about sanctions. So they don't have their hiding place is being blown away every day. They are calling them targeted sanctions, whatever it is, but the world is defining them as sanctions.
Okay, let's then go to Tendai Biti. Why do you think Tendai Biti refuses to use the word sanctions?
As I said earlier on, that the United States of America formed a political party called MDC, And anyone who purports to be a leader is an official spokesperson. And the script is written in Washington. The media is Studio 7. I always laugh when Studio 7, they desperately say, we are independent, we are not supporting any other political party. But if they call 10 guests during their broadcast, probably 9 are from MDC, or they criticize ZANU-PF or the government. I mean, if Zimbabwe was also a superpower, by virtue of creating a radio station out of a national broadcaster, it's enough to cause even a war, a full-scale war. But Zimbabwe fights to defend its territory. It's not an invading army, it's a defending army. So US has always violated the sovereignty of other countries. So Tendai Biti is told the script. The script is, when you say sanction, they jump to misgovernance, they jump to corruption. If you are not good in English, you would think that the word sanctions directly means corruption. They are trying to make corruption as a definition of the word sanctions. It tells you that no matter how they are advocates, no matter how Tendai Biti is good in English, but he gets it wrong. Why is he getting a simple word wrong? Because they are told what to say.
Okay. I want to go a bit deeper because I want us to have a very deep conversation.
Yeah.
And where I want to end is, how do we remove these sanctions?
Yeah.
Ambassador Greenfield, she did not mention corruption. She mentioned bad policies. But the interesting thing is that she did not read the statement from from Professor Elena Doughan. She said it, that she hasn't read it.
Yeah.
But she says the bad policies in Zimbabwe are causing the situation in Zimbabwe. Can you unpack that for us? Is she wrong to say that the bad policies in Zimbabwe are causing the situation in Zimbabwe?
I would want to agree with her and not agree with her. If I agree with her, I'll blame ZANU-PF for not using their 2/3 majority in parliament to craft legislation which must punish those who call for sanctions. ZANU-PF must, the MDC must be punished. There must even be imprisonment terms of people who call upon sanctions. So I blame, bad policy to me, it's ZANU-PF failing to craft legislation that punishes MDC. Secondly, Chamisa must not be allowed to contest for power in Zimbabwe. And there must be a legislation that there are no elections in Zimbabwe until sanctions are removed. Why? Because I agree with Chamisa if he says 2018 was rigged. I agree. Why I agree with Chamisa? Because the election was conducted in an environment which was not even. Why was it not even? Because sanctions, they make people vote for opposition. So I'm only agreeing with Chamisa here that the election was rigged. 2023 is already rigged because when sanctions are there, they hate the economy, they hate everything, and they say a hungry man is an angry man. So the election 2023 is already rigged in favor of opposition.
Okay, let's replay her statement. I know many people have just joined. Let's replay the statement by the USA permanent representative to the United Nations, Miss Linda Thomas Greenfield. And then let's go to the next question after that.
I have not seen the special rapporteur's report out of Zimbabwe, but let me be clear. Our sanctions target individuals and institutions that are committing human rights violations, and we make every effort to ensure that those sanctions do not impact the people. What is happening in Zimbabwe is a result of bad policies in Zimbabwe. What is happening in Zimbabwe is the consequence of their leadership. It is not a consequence of our sanctions, and we will always resist any criticism of us that says our sanctions are the result of our sanctions are impacting people unfairly. And you certainly will see that we will be criticized for this. We're criticized for it by the government because they know that they are responsible for these actions. And I regret that the special rapporteur made the decision to put this in his report.
Okay, let's go to where she says the United States is doing everything in their power to make sure that these sanctions do not affect ordinary people. What has the United States done to make sure that these sanctions don't affect ordinary people?
According to them, ordinary people must rescue themselves by voting the ZANU-PF government out of power. The more maybe they vote for ZANU-PF, then it will be their own responsibility. The sanctions is a directive to say vote for opposition. What she's saying that she's exposing herself by using the term we will always resist the blame that sanctions are impacting on people, ordinary people, unfairly. That we will always resist. It means as long as the sanctions are in place, everyone with a sober sense, sober mind will always blame the US government. So they are ready to continuously resist. Because when you resist something, it means that something is targeted on you. And why are people always blaming US? They don't want to say they are, you know, when you play it dirty, you never accept. Because if America can accept that the sanctions are hitting on, they're impacting unfairly on ordinary people, then immediately after that statement, they must withdraw the sanctions. But the sanctions must serve their purpose of regime change. As long as there's no regime change done, the sanctions must be in place according to them.
Okay, so are they going to work? Right now, we are seeing the situation in Zimbabwe. I was in Zimbabwe a few weeks back. The economy was doing quite well. People were buying, were selling, buying and selling. But over the past 2 weeks, we have seen the resurgence of the black market in Zimbabwe. These are the very same things that got Mugabe kicked out of office. As we move towards the elections, if this continues over the next 2 years, are we not going to see people turning against the government of Zimbabwe?
Okay, thank you so much. As I said earlier on, that is ZANU-PF must not sleep on duty. ZANU-PF must, to me, there's no need of holding elections in 2023 if sanctions are in place. The sanctions can achieve their intended goal of hitting the economy, because governing a country is actually governing economy. So sanctions they are hitting the very core of governance, which is the economy. That's why they say bad policy, misgovernance, corruption, everything to do with the corruption and everything. It's impacted on economy. So the government of Zimbabwe must put in place legislation that doesn't allow elections until sanctions are out of place. Because as much the government of Zimbabwe is conducting elections, they are playing the American ball. Because the American ball is knowing that many people are going to be frustrated with a bad economy and vote the government out of power. Currently, we need legislation that bans elections totally. Because elections now are a medium of and a privilege of the opposition in the US.
Okay, let's go to, you are preferring a solution there, which will probably make the situation worse. But I want to go to what Professor Elena Doughan said, and then want to look also at what Tendai said.
I'm calling for a structural dialogue, not only within the country. There shall be a dialogue between the government of Zimbabwe as well as other states. And I was very happy to find out, after talking to the representatives of diplomatic community, that this dialogue has started. I have heard from all of them that they are in the process of negotiation, and that's a good start. Maybe the way forward will be a long one, but the beginning, every road starts with the very first step. The same exists at the national level. As I can observe, there is very high level of polarization in this society as concerns the approach of the problem of sanctions. That's why I call. Probably we shall forget about the sanctions rhetoric as an advocacy tool. Probably we shall start speak about law, facts, and human rights protection.
We call for genuine dialogue guaranteed by SADC, guaranteed by the international community. We call for reforms, constitutional reforms, electoral reforms, as we argued in our two documents, Reload and Prize. We call for a sustainable Zimbabwe, led by a leader chosen and loved by the people, whom, by the way, is Advocate Nelson Chamisa.
I have not seen the special rapporteur's report out of Zimbabwe, but let me be clear. Our sanctions target individuals and institutions that are committing human rights violations, and we make every effort to ensure that those sanctions do not impact the people. What is happening in Zimbabwe is a result of bad policies in Zimbabwe. What is happening in Zimbabwe is the consequence of their leadership. It is not a consequence of our sanctions. And we will always resist any criticism of us that says our sanctions are the result of our sanctions are impacting people unfairly. And you certainly will see that we will be criticized for this. We're criticized for it by the government because they know that they are responsible for these actions. And I regret that the special rapporteur made the decision to put this in his report.
Right, let's unpack this a little bit more. There are two positions here. The special rapporteur, Professor Elena Doughan, she recommends dialogue at two levels: Zimbabwe government and the United States government, and then the Zimbabwe government internally with all the other parties, including the MDC alliance. And then Tendai Biti, he makes two important points. The first point is that they want dialogue with ZANU-PF, and also that the sanctions should only be lifted when Chamisa is in office. I don't know if you heard that clearly. Did you pick that up from Tendai Biti?
Yes, I picked it up.
Okay. And then, obviously, there's the issue of polarization. You cannot have dialogue directly with someone that you're polarized with.
Yeah.
And Tendai Biti makes the important suggestion that there must be a mediator from SADC, because the Zimbabwe situation cannot be mediated directly by the two opposing parties. What is your view on that?
The mere mentioning of the word dialogue, if ZANU-PF, I don't see the reason why ZANU-PF must have a dialogue with Chamisa. There is no need of ZANU-PF to have a dialogue with Chamisa, because ZANU-PF won 2/3 majority in parliament. If they do a dialogue, that dialogue is there to solve what?
They want the sanctions to be removed. They want the sanctions to be removed. And the special rapporteur has recommended that if you want these sanctions to be removed, then have dialogue.
No, okay, thank you. The dialogue, the discussion between ZANU-PF and MDC, how do they, both are not representing US. As I said, the MDC, they are not even accepting mostly the word sanctions. They are not even accepting that the sanctions are hurting our economy and ordinary people. They don't agree to that. They are saying it's corruption and misgovernance. And then thirdly, they mention legitimacy. Now, if ZANU-PF can sit down and they also want Chamisa to be the president. Now, in other words, they are clearly saying to ZANU-PF, come to the table and with the power, with the keys of the State House. When you come to the table, you come and surrender the keys to the State House. Simple. They are using, they are strategically using the word dialogue, referring to the State House keys. So I don't see the need of ZANU-PF to go to a dialogue unless if ZANU-PF is ready to just surrender their power and give MDC without any discussion. There's no need of any discussion because the MDC are clear. When you say our main topic is legitimacy, what are you saying?
Okay, but so where we are heading, Mr. Tinashe Jonas, we are heading to a very dangerous point. I can assure you, I have been watching this Zimbabwe political landscape for the past 10 years. I've been running this media house for the past 10 years. Where we are now, we cannot go another 2 years with this situation. Something is going to give.
Okay,
I'm telling you this from... Sorry, proceed.
Okay. What can I say? When a dialogue, if there was any need, remember there's Pollard already. Pollard is there as a platform. And Chamisa or BT, they can join Pollard at any time, any given time. They are saying they are only stakeholders in the Zimbabwean political arena, which is ZANU-PF and MDC of Chamisa, full stop. Any other person is not important. Now, because they got over 2 million votes, so they are deleting everyone in that dialogue, except themselves and maybe a SADC principal. They prefer maybe President Ramaphosa, whoever. Now, so this is about it. It's a continuation to them of the Supreme Court ruling, which said ED is the winner and Chamisa is a loser. They are trying to take away the Supreme Court judgment and then sit on the table and then announce themselves from the discussion as the winners of the election. The terms of reference of the dialogue is clearly that ZANU-PF will be ZANU-PF will be very silly to sit down with such terrorists. Believe me, there won't be dialogue between ZANU-PF and MDC unless ZANU-PF will be made.
But do you agree with me, Mr. Jonas? Do you agree with me that the situation that we're in now is explosive, is on the verge as we speak, in terms of what is happening with the currency over the past few months? The currency has been very stable. And we are starting to see what happened with the currency in the period leading up to the removal of Mugabe. You remember that period when Mugabe went out of the country and the currency dropped in one day by almost 50%. We are getting to those points where the Reserve Bank has to intervene. And there's just lack of clarity in the environment, in the economic environment. We are starting to see people complaining and going on the streets, starting with the war veterans last week. Is this not the impact of these sanctions? And are we not getting to a point where ZANU-PF is getting in danger now from public anger?
Thank you so much. But I want you to clarify, you said the same currency problem before maybe resulted in President Robert Mugabe being removed. Are you saying he was removed directly due to the weakening currency?
The economy under Mugabe deteriorated to a point where nothing was functional in the economy. At the moment, our inflation, according to official estimates, is at 85%. According to official records, it's at 49%. These are not the same figures that we were discussing when we were discussing about the World Bank reports and all that a few weeks ago or a few months ago. These numbers were doing very, very well. We have gotten to a point where within the past few weeks, things have suddenly become unclear. Is this not the sanctions? Are we not getting to a point where this is going to become dangerous to the government?
Okay, thank you so much. First, I want to acknowledge the effects of sanctions on the Zimbabwean economy. Obviously, it's severe. They were put in place for the same purpose, that to affect the currency and other economy activities and the production, balance of trade and stuff. But now, I want you to understand that a government is not removed because of or a weakening economy or whatever it is. Because Zimbabwe is a constitutional democracy, that a president is removed and the government is removed through elections. Right now, the situation in Zimbabwe right now is far much better than what was in 2008, and the government is actually, the government is doing well in terms of their duty of building all clinics, hospitals, schools, infrastructure, and everything. I want you to understand that we are in the midst of a pandemic, which is a global disaster. Every country in the world, including superpowers like China and the US, their economies are actually staggering, and Zimbabwe is not an exception. We are in a global pandemic. Let's not forget about that. And a currency is not really a good economic indicator, because a currency changes every hour. Every hour, a currency either gains or goes down. So a currency is not really an economic indicator, or our economy is improving, because on the ground, bumper harvest and food security in Zimbabwe, we have got food security right now, and any other sectors are performing. A currency changes every hour.
Okay. I think the question needs to go back to the issue of dialogue. Dialogue is suggested by Professor Elena Doughan, and dialogue is suggested by Tendai Biti. Which one do you think would take us forward? Or no dialogue like you're suggesting?
No dialogue, because the US, they put the sanctions as a weapon for ZANU-PF government to lose power. The end game is the MDC to take over the reins of power in Zimbabwe. And as we speak, MDC is doing all the fake abductions, fake assassinations, confusing bullet holes with the rock walls, and it's not working. Surely ZANU-PF is not stupid to assassinate Chamisa when the UN rapporteur they invited is in the country. They can't. So these are desperation ways, and that MDC is exposing itself. It's going to be very difficult in future for an abduction, and for Chamisa again to escape another fake assassination. It's going to be difficult. Right now, as we speak, reports are saying the Toyota Fortuner with the rock walls and the hammer and the chisel has been impounded by the police for investigation. And for viewers who are watching this program, they refused to hand over the car themselves to the police to investigate. They refused to show police the crime scene, which Chamisa was said to have been almost assassinated. Why? Because the forensic team would establish that from where the bullet came from and the car was in high speed. It's impossible. Now, I look forward for even Chamisa and crew to be arrested for a fake assassination. Now, it's actually the US team, the US political party with a Zimbabwe branch called MDC, Chamisa. They are the ones who are failing. The government of Zimbabwe is doing well to sustain our sovereignty, because yes, they need to improve on economy, but the first thing is to keep our independence from US. And under any circumstance, there will never be power transfer in Zimbabwe to MDC, because it will be to reverse the gains of the war of revolution. It will be an insult to the people who contributed, the Chimhidos, the Mujibas, to the war of liberation. There will never be power transfer in Zimbabwe. Otherwise, if ever there is any power transfer in Zimbabwe, it must be done when MDC defeats the Zimbabweans through armed struggle. No one will hand over power to Chamisa. No one.
Okay, let's go back to that statement. I want to replay that reply by Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield. Then I want to go to your last point after we hear.
I have not seen the special rapporteur's report out of Zimbabwe, but let me be clear. Our sanctions target individuals and institutions that are committing human rights violations. And we make every effort to ensure that those sanctions do not impact the people. What is happening in Zimbabwe is a result of bad policies in Zimbabwe. What is happening in Zimbabwe is the consequence of their leadership. It is not a consequence of our sanctions. And we will always resist any criticism of us that says our sanctions are the result of our sanctions are impacting people unfairly. And you certainly will see that we will be criticized for this. We're criticized for it by the government because they know that they are responsible for these actions. And I regret that the special rapporteur made the decision to put this in his report.
Okay, I want us to bring this to an end, and I want to go to your last point, that Chamisa should not be allowed to, or there should be no power hand over to Chamisa. Don't you think that will guarantee for a fact that the sanctions will never be removed?
No, I can say to the American government, to hell, to that Greenfield, to hell with her. The sanctions must stay in place, because the removal of the sanctions is us Zimbabweans to bow down to US dominance and the US white supremacy, monopoly capital. For me, Joe Biden and his government, to hell. I don't, for myself, I don't care, because we will never bow down to US. We will never bow down to Chamisa. I wish I was maybe the military commander of Zimbabwe. Or
but is that not the polarization? Is that not the polarization?
No.
Yes.
Fighting terrorism is not polarization. I think Zimbabwe, I think Comrade Mugabe, as the Minister of State Security, that is a kind man. I think Comrade Opamuchinguri, as the Minister of Defense, as a kind woman. If I were Minister of Defense, I would send the soldiers to shoot Chamisa dead. And if I go to Zimbabwe, I know I will be in trouble with the police one day, because I will do whatever I can do to deal with Chamisa. Chamisa is a terrorist who has got a ZANU-PF government which is lenient, which is very kind. Zimbabwe military must look for Chamisa, shoot him point blank. If America is coming, they must come. Zimbabwe, we got independence through war, defeating the UK and the Americans. We are not scared of war. Chamisa deserves to be shot point blank, not that fake assassination. And I'm afraid when I'm in Zimbabwe, I'll be in trouble.
Okay, I think let's take another short break, and let's look at. I want us to look at Tendai Biti again, just briefly.
Okay.
Because he's making some key points.
We call for genuine dialogue, guaranteed by SADC, guaranteed by the international community. We call for reforms, constitutional reforms, electoral reforms, as we argued in our two documents, Reload and Prize. We call for a sustainable Zimbabwe, led by a leader chosen and loved by the people, whom, by the way, is Advocate Nelson Chamisa.
Right. It seems like there is two different views on this matter.
Yeah.
Do you think the ZANU-PF government will change its position on dialogue?
Now, if ZANU-PF meets Tendai Biti and Chamisa, they'll be selling out. Because this is not like a Lancaster House conference. No. Lancaster House conference was a noble conference. Why? Because when you are at war, you need peace. Now we are not at war in Zimbabwe. We are under terrorism. Zimbabwe is under terrorism, and I don't know why the patriotic bill is hiding somewhere. I don't know, but we are under terrorism, and I don't know. I sometimes I wish I can develop whether a chemical or something that can activate Tendai Biti's HIV to choke him, because we can't really entertain terrorists doing press conference after press conference, a strategy to sustain sanctions, terrorists doing fake assassinations. They've got a very good government. ZANU-PF is a very we have got a listening president. Otherwise, these guys, I'm telling you, the reason sometimes I'm delaying going to Zimbabwe, because for Chamisa to do a rally in Pindura or in Kadoma and I mean Harare, I will shoot nonsense.
Okay, where does this leave the ordinary person? The United Nations Special Rapporteur, I've read through her report. She's very balanced. She's very fair. She's looked at the issues. The ordinary people are suffering. There are no jobs. Hospitals are closed down. There are no services. There's no water in Harare. People are going to boreholes.
Yeah.
The impact of these sanctions have been severe. But we've got two different political parties with two different opposing views. And the United States is not interested at all in any other position except that of the MDC. They agree that with the MDC that the policies of the Zimbabwe government are the problem.
No.
Where does this leave the ordinary Zimbabwean?
Okay, let's not say United States is in agreement with the MDC. They are not in agreement. United States is the owner of the political party called MDC. The BT and Chamisa are spokespersons. Chamisa is not the standing committee of MDC. Chamisa is no power over that party. They don't. As I said, the minutes, they don't even have meetings. They are given minutes from Washington. What they do is to talk. Anything they talk is not Zimbabwean. No any Zimbabwean can say sanctions are not affecting ordinary people. No one can say that. Worse when that person is purporting to be a pastor. And lawyers and pastors are public people. By nature, a lawyer or a pastor is an activist. Someone who
but what does that leave our ordinary people? I understand the politicians have got their position. The young people are still unemployed. The economy is still difficult.
No,
the hospitals are still.
Ordinary people are suffering. Ordinary people are suffering, no doubt. They say when elephants, when two elephants are fighting, it's the grass which suffers. It's unfortunate because we have got a political party that was formed on a cause of power, on a power intent, and they will do anything. So US is not is in agreement with the MDC. US is instructing MDC what to say, and MDC will never differ word by word, full stop by full stop with the US. They will never, because they are given a script.
Okay, we've got a guest who has joined us, Munashe. So before he joins, I want to give you the rules, Munashe. We've got a lot of people watching here. Please, let's have the language that is respectful to everybody. And I want to play first the response by Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield. Then I can give you an opportunity to speak.
I have not seen the special rapporteur's report out of Zimbabwe.
Yes,
but let me be clear. Our sanctions target individuals and institutions that are committing human rights violations. And we make every effort to ensure that those sanctions do not impact the people. What is happening in Zimbabwe is a result of bad policies in Zimbabwe. What is happening in Zimbabwe is the consequence of their leadership. It is not a consequence of our sanctions. And we will always resist any criticism of us that says our sanctions are the result of our sanctions are impacting people unfairly. And you certainly will see that we will be criticized for this. We're criticized for it by the government because they know that they are responsible for these actions. And I regret that the special rapporteur made the decision to put this in his report.
Right, Munashe, please unmute yourself, and then you have an opportunity here to comment on the topic at hand.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Gambakwe. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Mr. Gambakwe. Sorry, Mr. Gambakwe. I don't think it's good to allow a guest who is anonymous. Why is he anonymous?
Okay, I think let's give him a chance to speak.
No, Mr. Gambakwe, no, Mr. Gambakwe.
Okay, Munashe, please turn on your
no.
camera.
These are maybe this is an MDC ghost. On Facebook, they insult us as ghost here. No, we can't allow.
Okay, he's here now. He's here now.
Yeah, we can't allow a ghost.
Okay, Munashe, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Very well.
So for me, I've seen this and I've taken note of your comment. And the thing is, yes, we have sanctions, but for me, I think to a certain extent, the sanctions, they are impacting on Zimbabwe, but it's not like more than 50%. We have corruption that is in the government, and looting of funds. People, they are being allowed to smuggle gold. I mean, if we tackle that first, if we remove, if we reduce the corruption that we have, it will reduce. Yes, we have the sanctions, but if we remove that corruption, the money that is being smuggled through gold, if it is given to the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Education, or sometimes to workers, it can help. But when we have people smuggling gold, and then they are not sued, and then the gold is not submitted to the government, that way, we cannot go forward. And I think we should, or as a country, as political parties, we should have that agreement, to come to a table where it's equal for everyone. Everyone has a right to speak, and we agree on on our views, and we differ on our views. But one of the important things is us to have dialogue, because as far as I'm concerned, politics, you have disunited people, people, they don't have unity now because of politics. So we should, and to go forward, we should get united first, then we go forward. And I think it's important for us to have a dialogue, because we will discuss many issues, and also, human rights violation, like people now they have no right, and when they go to the courts, they are not their voice, they are not the court will not hear their voices. So we need to really.
So Munashe, I'm happy that you raised these points. What I want us to do is, I think you've made a contribution. There are more people who want to come in. When you talk of human rights violations, give me a few examples.
Yes, we can go to Wopo Chingwano, a journalist. He have been attacked. Yeah, he have been he went to jail for some reasons. But we don't want, we want transparent at the court. We want judges to be independent of the government. Like the judges, they should not be involved with supporting any party. They should not be supporting anyone. They should stand for what is right and what is wrong. When something is not right, the government should quickly, reject what is not right and put in place what is good.
Okay, thanks very much, Munashe. And let's have another discussion. I'm going to try to find some ZANU-PF officials tomorrow or during this week, so that we can address this issue of human rights according to the United States. Thank you very much, and please continue watching.
Thank you.
Right, Mr. Jonasi, let's go to the issue of human rights. Do you disagree that there are human rights violations in Zimbabwe? Let me give you a few examples.
Okay. Before I go, I want to comment on the guy who contributed. He said sanctions are not contributing more than 50%. First, if I had asked him directly, I was going to ask him what formula was he using to reach to that point. He said the judges must be independent. And I wanted again to know, how does he come to that conclusion of that judges are not independent? These are just is buying the anti-Zimbabwean narrative. There's no political party in Zimbabwe that is going to cost more than MDC of Chamisa. When they get favorable judgments, they celebrate. When the judgment is against them, Wopo Chingono enjoyed a working judiciary system. There are countries where you are arrested and you rot in prison without even trial, with no bail. But we are in a country that public opinion is supreme over any state institution. Public opinion of MDC. Okay. Now you can go on with
Mr. Jonasi. I don't want us to brush over this issue.
Okay.
There's the issue of Makombora Haruzuvishe.
All right.
Right. He's in jail now.
All right.
Those are some of the issues that are being raised. There's issues of Wopo himself.
Maybe let's do one case at a time. Can you elaborate the charges of Makomborero? What he was charged with?
Basically, to me, there was a nothing. If I look at that case, it was not supposed to land someone in jail.
No problem. But do you remember his charges?
Well, not in the exact terms. I can bring them here next time and then we'll discuss. But as far as I'm concerned,
all right. I think that is a wrong example. Can we go to an example where you know the charges?
Okay, Wopo Chingono for tweeting.
Okay. All right. What was he charged with? He tweeted. Then what was his charges?
Well, that was the charge. That's why the charge was quashed. It didn't make sense to the judge.
No, I mean, you can't be charged by the charge can't be called tweeting. What was the charge? He tweeted, and then what was the charge?
Well, I don't want to look. I don't have the exact details with me here, but all I can
All
tell
right.
you is that he made a tweet, and
All
then
right.
after he made a tweet, he got arrested.
All right. Okay. I'm happy that you don't have the detail, but
Yeah.
you have got the detail that it was like a human right violation. But you don't know the circumstances that led to him being arrested. So that's a typical example of so many people. We use opinions over facts. What happens? It's not a human rights violation to be arrested. Police are mandated to arrest you on suspicion. Any case or police, when they arrest you, they don't try you. You are not tried before being arrested to make sure that the arresting is 100% correct. In many, they say you are innocent until proven guilty. So being arrested and being put in jail means you are innocent. Then when you go through your trial, you can be found guilty or not guilty. There's a big difference between an arresting officer and a magistrate or a judge. This is the simple matters of justice. Everywhere in the world, you can be arrested 5 times or 10 times and still be found not guilty of different charges. That doesn't translate into the violation of your rights. Police are not trained to know that when we arrest you, you are going to be convicted. Police, they look at the constitution. You can even rape 10 women and be found not guilty. Even though sometimes you have raped, but when the trial, maybe there was lack of evidence, maybe there's what. I mean, there are so many people who can even be found not guilty when they were guilty. So we in Zimbabwe, we are equating arresting and trial. Wopwe, let's say, was charged with the 2 counts of whatever, and then found not guilty. If his trial, if he already is under trial, or the cases were dismissed, that is synonymous with that's the independence of the courts. If ZANU-PF is controlling the courts, and we buy to the narrative that Wopwe Chimono is the enemy of the state, then he was supposed to be convicted, because a state can even manufacture evidence.
Okay, so let's give Mkoma Innocent a chance to speak. And Mr. Jonas, I'll give you a break. How are you, sir? Mr. Innocent, how are you?
Mr. Gambakwe.
Good, thank you. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think I'm just here to represent the young people of Zimbabwe and Africa. That young people are tired, number one. Number two, we are so late to the show. A lot of things are happening around the globe. Well, at least we are enjoying the drama of this old Madala who are just wasting time. I live in the diaspora, and the truth of the matter is people are moving forward with life, innovation, finances, technology, all these things. Well, at least all these guys who are most of them very incompetent in both parties. Just look, even ZANU-PF. Today we saw the ZANU-PF guys arriving in Scotland, Glasgow, and buying a lot of beer, a sign of mental retardation. As young people, as the nation of Zimbabwe, as Africa at large, we don't expect us to be in an argument of sanctions or sanctions lifting, because it has little effect. Those arguments or conversations will never reach the corridors of Washington, D.C. But what we can do is we can control the controllables. This is principle number one in life. Whether you're operating at an individual level, family level, or national level, when you see things which you cannot control, live and focus on the things which you control. The things which we can control are this. We have got our own resources. We have minerals. We have got human capital. We have got a very functional systems education-wise. Zimbabweans are known for, a high literacy. We can tell that we try to provide incentives to our own work. You know, Zimbabweans do to drive Lamborghinis or these Ferraris, what we are seeing. We don't need that representation. Many Zimbabweans just need food on the table. They need money to send their kids to colleges. And actually, they just need a stable life. But our government is failing to provide that. How come that our government provide our parents like $100 per month? What's that, Gambagwe? We don't need to tolerate that. So what we have to focus on is to focus on the controllables. Let's focus on using our resources to better our own country. This is the way we can lure even investors. If we show that we are very desperate, we are being and inviting those Scottish people to wear t-shirts or to lie that the car was broken or this and that. What are we doing as Zimbabweans? I don't buy the narrative trying to stage things or and I think that's a late Stone Age kind of approach. But what we can do now, through young people, we don't need political parties to be excellent young people, to be Zimbabweans. The honest truth is every Zimbabwean now needs change. They need to eat. They need a better life. We want to come back home and we need stable finance. We want to invest. There's to invest in New York State. So let's build systems. Let's cut systems. Let's make Zimbabwean systems. The first thing to accept who we are as Ubuntu. Even creating my systems are not addressers. You don't speak English, most of them. Germany, Italy.
Okay.
They have
Innocent, I'm hearing you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to cut you off there.
They love their own country.
Innocent, I have to cut you off. Your network is breaking. So what I want us to do is, I think your point is made. Yeah.
I think I need to answer to him. Number one is dishonest.
Let's give you a chance to answer. And Innocent, please.
Number one,
listen from the YouTube.
He is dishonest and is a liar. Why? Because he is saying he's representing young people in Zimbabwe and globally. I don't think he has got a mandate and a permission by any young people to represent. He was supposed to contribute on the platform representing his own opinions. Number one. Number two, to call someone who was in Scotland buying grocery or beer mentally retarded, to me, it shows how shallow he is. Because what is the problem of a black Zimbabwean in Scotland buying groceries? What is the problem with that? Because he was wearing a ZANU-PF scarf, because he is a ZANU-PF member, then you call him mentally retarded. It shows how shallow the contributor is. Number three, he is saying Madalas it's like they are messing our lives. You are allowed to run, to contest as a councillor. You are allowed to contest as a senator. You are allowed to contest as a member of parliament. You are allowed to run as the president of Zimbabwe. If ever you are 18 years and above. The fact that you are not an MP or a councillor means you don't have political capital to win any election. Just shut up on that. If an old person is in power, why are you not contesting as a president? Then he is going on to talk about innovation and whatsoever. What have you invented in your life, in your lifetime? Let us not try to be better in terms of speeches. There are so many Zimbabweans who are doing big things. And for you to reduce Zimbabweans to wanting food on the table and taking their kids to school, Zimbabweans are ambitious. If you think life is about food and school fees, define that as your life. Don't
guys, let's take a break here. I think we need to all take a breather here, and let's go back to the key issue we're discussing here: the United States response to Professor Elena Doughan. Let's see how the United States has responded. I don't think they'll issue anything different from this. Let's hear it again.
I have not seen the special rapporteur's report out of Zimbabwe, but let me be clear. Our sanctions target individuals, and institutions that are committing human rights violations. And we make every effort to ensure that those sanctions do not impact the people. What is happening in Zimbabwe is a result of bad policies in Zimbabwe. What is happening in Zimbabwe is the consequence of their leadership. It is not a consequence of our sanctions. And we will always resist any criticism of us that says our sanctions are the result of our sanctions are impacting people unfairly. And you certainly will see that we will be criticized for this. We're criticized for it by the government because they know that they are responsible for these actions. And I regret that the special rapporteur made the decision to put this in his report.
Right. Mgoma Panganai, I want to give you a chance. I know this is your show. We stole your show. Give us your view. The United States have spoken. They've given a very, very firm response, and they're not going to move on their original position on Zimbabwe sanctions. What do you say about the response from the United States?
Well, the first thing is they actually acknowledge that there are sanctions in Zimbabwe. That is respectful, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is the denial of the impact of sanctions on Zimbabwe. And that's disturbing and very much unfortunate from the United States stance, because they're just using, I do not know what they're thinking about when they come up with that such of a response. So it's a problem for me. And also, when it comes to sanctions, guys, I think Zimbabweans need to actually understand that, like what we discussed last week, our government officials, if we claim that these sanctions are on individuals, it is a fact that they cannot do business on our behalf. And that is a fact. And what has MDC have done now is they have failed to be in power because of their poor and lack of strategies to be in power. So they are not in power. So those sanctions and those people that we are sanctioned right now, they are our leaders. Yes.
Right. I think your point is made, and I want us to bring this to an end. We've just passed an hour. Mr. Jonas, I want to give you an opportunity to say your last word. Where we are, I've set a stage here, and you can quote me. If this situation is allowed to remain like this, by December 2022, we are heading towards a disaster, because the sanctions are biting, the economy is responding. What is your last word on this situation? How can you close this situation?
All right, Zimbabwe, many people have prophesized the doom and all sorts of things, prophecy and everything. As progressive Zimbabweans, we are not going to be intimidated by sanctions, inflation, or whatever it is. And mark my words, Mr. Gambakwe, not 22 December. You can even put 20 years after that. The government of Zimbabwe will be standing. The people of Zimbabwe will be resolute. The regime change ideas and activities marked by fake abductions and fake assassinations will fail. Chamisa will never be a president this year, 2023, 2028, 2033. Chamisa will not be a president. MDC will never test power in Zimbabwe. If it means, because I missed going to Mozambique because I was very young. But if it means now there's a second opportunity of going to the bush to fight Chamisa, I'm willing to do that. Chamisa will never take power. NDT terrorists will never run our country. They will never. Terrorists will never take power in Zimbabwe. So MDC supporters listening to me, forget about Chamisa being a president. US, Joe Biden, Greenfield, US ambassador to Zimbabwe, you can go to hell.
Okay, I think that those are very strong words. And I want to remind everyone that I don't censor anyone here. In fact, I do that deliberately. And sometimes I ask questions that I know the answer for. I do that on purpose too.
Respond to that.
Yes.
How are you, Tinashe Jonashe? You remember me? Yeah, I think what is important right now is to unite the people of Zimbabwe. That is what is important. We might be receiving insults from the other side, but we just have to embrace them. And also, they should also understand how we think differently in terms of, I agree with you 100%, Tinashe, but we cannot use that strong language towards them. That's what I believe in. That's because they have to understand why we are in a position that we believe that Nelson Chamisa and MDC should do something about it. That's what I believe in. So the insult culture that the people of Zimbabwe have been indulging themselves in is quite a problem for me as well, because I've been advocating against it. And we should not respond to the supporters in a way that they also do on our social media posts and comments and stuff like that, but to embrace them and show them the way that, guys, the only way for Zimbabweans is unity and unity only. There's nothing that can change from that. That's what I believe in.
Okay, thank you very much, gents. I want us to close this out. Mr. Panganai Mhlanga, I'll be with you tomorrow. We're going to be discussing the court case that has been brought against President Idi Mnangagwa, I think by one of the ZANU-PF members. So we're going to have a bit more detail on that. Mr. Jonashe, I really appreciate the fact that you came here today. And I think everyone here has had a very important look at the two sides. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say before we close?
That sanctions, if they are there for us to bow down to US dominance, they will rather remain in place.
Okay, good night, everybody, and we'll talk again tomorrow.
I have not seen the special rapporteur's report out of Zimbabwe, but let me be clear. Our sanctions target individuals and institutions that are committing human rights violations. And we make every effort to ensure that those sanctions do not impact the people. What is happening in Zimbabwe is a result of bad policies in Zimbabwe. What is happening in Zimbabwe is the consequence of their leadership. It is not a consequence of our sanctions. And we will always resist any criticism of us that says our sanctions are the result of our sanctions are impacting people unfairly. And you certainly will see that we will be criticized for this. We're criticized for it by the government because they know that they are responsible for these actions. And I regret that the special rapporteur made the decision to put this in his report.
I'm calling for a structural dialogue, not only within the country. There shall be a dialogue between the government of Zimbabwe as well as other states. And I was very happy to find out, after talking to the representatives of diplomatic community, that this dialogue has started. I have heard from all of them that they're in the process of negotiation, and that's a good start. Maybe the way forward will be a long one, but the beginning, every road starts with the very first step. The same exists at the national level. As I can observe, there is very high level of polarization in this society as concerns the approach of the problem of sanctions. That's why I call probably we shall forget about the sanctions rhetoric as an advocacy tool.
Anovura meso, anovura nzeve, anokaya marigi. .com .com usasaire Kama kwe anogaya mai